Yeah.
Or sorry, I have. It's been a while since I have. It's been almost 2 months, I think, since I started the meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Too much Hawaii. Yeah.
yeah, too much sun. And all right, so what I thought about was that we were gonna use something called Parable to run the retrospective. So the way that it works is that it's almost like it's kind of making it more fun, more organized in order to run it. And the tool is free to use, so you should be able to join up. You might have to create an account. I can't remember.
Yes, and
but
you have to invite or something like this.
Yeah.
So you should have received. Is that not the invitation link?
I don't think so.
No?
No,
I don't know. Let me try.
it says that.
Yep, same for me.
All right, so here is the invitation link.
Yes.
Wow.
Ni hao.
Ni hao, Jonas Lagoni, it says.
Why does it say so for me? It should say so for each of you.
I don't know. It says ni hao. I assume that this might be randomly selected.
No, because it's the first in the list.
Ah. All right, so each of us basically start. Okay, now I see.
Oh, yeah, you have to pick up yours.
All right, so yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Your name in the list, the left.
Yes. All right. Now we know how that works. All right, so
weird.
all right, we can also refresh it if you don't want it. So question is, so it's basically just an icebreaker to start the meeting off. So if you had to live on Mars, what is the one item that you would take with you? One thing. Doesn't have to be an item, it can be anything. What would it be? So for me, it would definitely be, I don't know if I can say books. I don't think I can say a specific one, but books is probably the one.
An umbrella.
An umbrella.
Radiation, right?
Yeah. Sergio?
No. A dome.
No.
A dome for living inside.
A dome? You mean a house?
Yeah.
Good one. Ace?
Probably my dog.
That is a good choice.
Now,
Which dog do you have?
Now that you're gonna die, let's die together, right?
Exactly. I was going to say that. Good way to sacrifice your pet.
Pedro, how about you?
I don't know, man. Something like something to play music or
turntable. I was going to say, yeah.
Entertainment, some entertainment, or maybe a bottle of water.
Bottle of water.
Yes, what on mass?
Well, if Lucas was here, it would probably be beer.
Oh yeah, that's cooler, yeah.
Any Mish? How about you? If you want, no pressure. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to, Anish, you have to answer this icebreaker question. You can see in the screen.
What's the one thing that you would bring to Mars if you were going? Only pick one.
Haven't thought about it. Like nothing's coming to my mind right now.
No worries. No worries. All right, reflection. So the way that it works, or this specific format that I picked, is that we each write our own reflections on each of these on each of our own screens. Now everything is anonymous, but after we group them together, and even in the discussion phase, we can, if you want to share which one that you wrote, feel free to do it. Otherwise, we can talk about them in general afterwards. Yeah, so let's say that we want to try 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and see how we're doing. So yeah, let's try 10 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer. All right, so time is more or less up. I can see I could actually set a timer, but I didn't. So now we're just gonna end it manually. Does anyone want some extra minutes before we move on? Okay. So let's move on. All right, groupings. Shadows. All right, so now we can basically group all of the topics that are similar or more or less the same, so we can focus on the groupings rather than the like duplicates, reflections. So we released it in the end. Oh, that's a good one. Yep, also a good one. I guess we can say and each of you can do the same, so it doesn't have to be me that are grouping it.
But I like to be you. So you
Yeah, I bid, but I'm telling you to do a little work.
Yeah, no, doesn't work for me.
You can do the questions tab if you want.
Okay. You broke my siesta, so now you can.
I guess we can roll that into that. All right, I didn't want that. People are excited for that. I'm gonna put this into transparent meetings. I'm gonna put this as well. Having good discussions. I'm moving on to learnings.
Good luck with this.
Okay, I don't think we can really
No,
group that.
that's why I said good luck. That's good. Lots of good learnings.
Coordinating major versions, effort. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Next. Guess we can merge those. I guess this is meant to be met. Guess we can merge those. All right. Everyone happy with that one?
Mhm.
No comments? moving on. All right. So vote. So which one of these do we find most important, or which one would we like to discuss in the next one? Basically, for the rest of the time, we can discuss everything moving downwards with the, like, for example, most votes and then going downwards to make sure that we reach as much as possible. So vote for, let's set a timer for 3 minutes. Should be enough, I think.
Hey, Jonas.
Mhm.
So we can only click once, right? Because like say you can actually click more than once.
You can click all the points you want, basically.
No, I think you have 5 votes only.
Okay.
You do. Yep. Good call. Um,
Hmm.
you can press the little ready tag in the bottom if you are done with your votes. Thirty more seconds. Keeping Fran awake. Clocks.
Huh?
The clock that ticked off. All right, so the first one is for the maintain spec. We need more maintainers, allocate more people on coordination and release effort. Does anyone want to bring anything up on this specific one, or have any points they want to bring up?
I do. So for those who don't know yet, I'll publish it probably next week if I find the time. But at so in the Postman team, in the Postman AsyncAPI team, right? We are going through a reorganization right now of how we work, and there will be 4 people dedicated only to um, figuring out how to make more people become maintainers. right? So elevate people from contributors to maintainers, right? So yeah, I know that most of you already know, except Animesh, right? But since this is being recorded and live streamed and so on, so just wanted to leave it here, and also because Animesh didn't know, of course. So yeah, so that should help. So along this year, it's cool that this was one of the main things, because along this year we plan on building guides on how to onboard contributors, how to onboard maintainers, how to, the idea is that there will be less, not less, there will be more non-Postman maintainers in every repo, basically. Spec is one of them, definitely. So yeah, it will need an effort from our side to write good onboarding guides on how to become a spec maintainer and so on. And so yeah, most likely also trainings or something like that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's needed. Yeah.
I guess the main reason for these two under the improvements is to speed up the release process, more or less. Speed up the amount of, or not even speed up, but also get more eyes on each change.
Yes. And to me, and to me, well, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. I was more or less done.
No, and to me, I was going to say that to me, this is also because so during a lot of time on V3, we had a lot of the issues like not being addressed without any pull request, right? Because nobody was taking care of them. None of the maintainers, including myself. And also, even when there was a pull request, it was taking a long time to review it and to approve it and so on. So yeah, that's why we need more maintainers. And also more contributors. So the work, let's say, doesn't have to be done necessarily by maintainers, but this can be also coming from contributors, like Heiko, for instance. He did the request reply feature, right? Being a contributor. That's how you become a maintainer as well. That's one of the ways you become a maintainer, right? By contributing. So yeah. But there needs to be maintainers helping you along the way, making sure you understand how to contribute properly to the spec and like a clear plan, right? On how to do it. So yeah. More people, more we share the load. The less we depend on Postman team, the better. Again, you lost your audio, Jonas.
Someone try and speak.
Now, yes.
Okay, now it was.
Yep. Anyone else? You're mute again, Jonas. Trash these headphones, man.
Those headphones didn't want to come from Hawaii and
No. Nor Japan.
other, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Who wants to take over?
You that you feel like you are asleep.
I hate you for that. All right, Pedro, it's your time. Take over.
To take the role of facilitator.
Later, it's your time. Shine.
Alright, I'm back. But please continue, Pedro, because I don't
Are you
want
back? No, I didn't push the button yet. Oof.
It's like
What's to
I
do
was a
that?
little bit too fast.
Oof.
Should have waited 20 seconds. All right, so I guess this goes back to what we just discussed, right? More or less.
I'm not
That-
sure.
No?
It's kind of, but for example, the coordination process, it's not only about maintainers, right? It's more like some group needs to be aware of everything that what is happening around the not the release, but the project of, in this case, version 3, and know in which state everything is. I'm not saying they have to be aware of everything, but at least they have to know where to get this information. That's one thing. And I don't think it's just maintainers, because
No.
who coordinates maintainers, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. And the same for the release.
And it goes beyond the spec repo. So it's
Yes.
because we also release all the tools, or we try to release as many tools as possible. So yeah, as Animesh is saying, like there could be a working group for that, of course.
Yeah.
But something like it should be some group that has a clear understanding of what's the state among all the tools. Let's say what's missing in every tool, what are we lacking, and when it's a major version, I mean it will be with every version, but when it's a major version, we most likely want to have also a marketing effort. So this needs to be coordinated and plan ahead, and there are lots of things that we have to think ahead of time that might probably need to be ready like 4 to 6 months before the release date, right? So yeah, it's beyond the spec, way beyond. It's the whole initiative, like all at once coming together, agreeing on something, right? On the spec, on a new spec.
I
on a new-
agree. I agree if the expectation is that we want everything done for a release.
I'm saying because I come from the other side. Before creating AsyncAPI, I was actively participating on OpenAPI and following OpenAPI as well. And it's still the case. They don't have tools, right? So most people are complaining that like the excitement is real among contributors that they release a new major version. But the reality is that it's only for the contributors. Nobody else will feel happy that there's a new version of OpenAPI because it's not supported anywhere. They cannot use it, right? So
I
then
agree.
what's the point of celebrating or even releasing? You can release it, silently release it maybe. But what's the point of celebrating something if people cannot use it, if it's useless, right? So
To me, there's actually a bit the other way around. Because we don't release it, there's no hype around it. There's no reason for maintainers to focus efforts in implementing v3 because it's never released.
But we can actually trigger that hype ourselves among the maintainers, right, of the tools, and tell them like, hey, get ready for the new v3 or v4 or whatever, right, for the new major version that's coming. So we are here to help you migrate everything that's ready, because if we don't do it, it's actually already happening. Even though we migrated most of the tools, many people are coming to the channel complaining, I'm trying to do this with V3 and it's not working. This is frustrating. You know, and think about it, like most of the people using AsyncAPI are not contributors or maintainers, are users, are simply users, adopters of AsyncAPI. So we will be frustrating the majority of the people, right? Not a small part of it. So,
but I have a feeling that if we don't freeze the release in the terms of, for example, offering, I don't even want to say it's a silent release, but if we don't offer something concrete like a release date, like now there's no other change. From this point on, everything is about tooling, everything is about documentation, everything is about. If we don't do something like that where it has a set date,
yeah,
if we don't do that, then there will be no reason for anyone to contribute in that way that we're talking about.
correct. So, I mean,
but I'm all for what you're saying. Like, I completely agree that without tooling everything, it basically makes no sense to release it. However, without some way or form setting something concrete, there's no reason to migrate tools, to start moving tools in to support it. At least that's what the behavior we saw.
Yep. So, well, that's the behavior we saw, because the lack of maintainers is also a problem in the majority of the tools.
Yeah.
Not just on the spec. So, I mean, of active maintainers, right? So, it was mainly the Postman team taking care of all the, let's say, all the migration process on every tool, which is normal because we are the only team of people who are working full time on this, right? So that's understandable, right? But what I'm saying is that if we manage to fix this problem on the tools of having active maintainers, if there's a working group in charge of coordinating this and telling the maintainers, hey, this is coming, we're going to help you migrate your tool if needed. Please, let's have that. Let's also find potential contributors to your tool so that they do this V4 support and so on. So you only have to approve, you only have to review, right? Not implement it necessarily. If that thing is in place, then it will have been different, right? But I agree that at some point we need to establish, like, even if we don't release the spec, at some point we need to establish, like, from here on, there are not more changes, right? So from here on, the spec will only have editorial changes at most, right? No more new features or changes or, something that can affect tooling, right? So after that, but at the same time, this is risky because while people are implementing the new spec on the tools, it's when we start discovering some inconsistencies in the new spec. So we need to give us also the flexibility of reflecting back and say, oh, wait, we're not going to release this because we thought it was correct. We marked the line here. Now, while implementing this new spec, we realized that there is a major problem here. Are we going to ship it anyway, just because this is a process?
But
Obviously,
don't you call that editorial changes?
no. I mean, imagine that, for instance, that there is a problem. I don't know, like message IDs are required or are not required, or things like that. So, and it becomes a problem, right? Because it's impossible. Imagine that you make them required and unique, and unique across the whole document, and it starts creating a lot of problems on tooling, right? Then we probably have to revert that change and think about it again in a different way. So we need to give us this kind of iterative process until tools are implemented, have it implemented, and we find that this is stable enough, and then it's like good to go, right? So having a clear date for release might be an option. Another option is that there's no clear date for release, but there is a process. Like once we agree that tooling is not giving us feedback that the spec is broken in some way or another, then and it's implemented in the tools, then it's like good to go. We can release it. But there needs to be people in charge of overseeing these things, right? And taking care of these things actively, right? This could be this working group that Animesh was talking about, right? So that's another option.
Do you want to move on to the next part? Because I have
comment. So just one
Okay.
comment about this, about the effort lot here. I don't know if it's gonna be in the next one or not, but the thing is that so V3 was a big beast with lots of changes because we were afraid of making mistakes and so on, and making a breaking change with not, or making too many breaking changes and then end up 2023 with V6 or V7, right? So instead we grouped all the breaking changes that we knew about into a big single release. Now, from now on, what I recommend is that one, let's say more or less, it's like one major release is one breaking change. Right? So, and we should not be afraid of finishing this year with V7 of the spec, right? So break it more often, let's say, if it's needed. That's one way. So that could be one way to avoid these problems, right? So it's not a big issue to coordinate all of this because they're gonna be small releases anyway. So yeah, easy to coordinate, right? Even though they're breaking changes, they're probably gonna be easy to do. And tools are gonna be like faster to adapt and so on. The other way is that we don't have version at all, right? GraphQL doesn't have a version in the document, in the schema. We have the AsyncAPI field with the version of the spec. OpenAPI has the OpenAPI field with the version of the spec. Protobuf, I think it doesn't have it, and GraphQL doesn't have it. It's not
I
needed.
absolutely hate it.
It's not needed. It's beautiful if you think about it, because it gives you, so you end up with versioning, but not on the whole document, but on specific parts of it. So it will be like operations version 1, operations version 2, operations version 3, like operations object, the way to define operations and so on. So we don't have to release a whole new version of the spec just because something changed. I mean, you release it, of course, but nobody has to change the number on their documents, right? This will also force us to be backward compatible. So we will release a new version, a new way of defining the operations, for instance, but we need to keep supporting the old one, right? And we need to define how things play together. So this will put all the burden on us, and it will make it much easier for people to use the spec, and they don't have to worry about what version they're in. Just say
the big problem on that is the interconnection between all the components, right?
correct. That's one.
And I don't see how you would be moving away of that version or global version, because at the end you will have to maintain some matrix of compatible versions between each component. It's
how does GraphQL do it?
But GraphQL, I don't remember. I mean, I use GraphQL when it was launched. So I don't remember. You don't have interconnections, no? Like everything is.
You do.
I mean,
Pipes are everywhere.
I
but-
think it
well,
makes
anyway.
sense to have it as a concrete example before discussing it, because it's one of those things that can probably take an hour.
Yeah.
But makes sense.
I mean, it's interesting to
Yeah.
explore that further.
Anything else for effort? So we are gonna go a bit over time. I'm not gonna stop it right at it, but let's go over a little bit.
Okay.
Anything else for effort? Moving on. Problem, we more or less similar to, I guess this comes down to pushing things forward without ownership and without code owners. It becomes hard to finish stuff.
Right.
But
Priorities.
this is across every repo, not just a spec,
Yes.
right? So lack of ownership, it's a problem because we can have the best spec in place that if tools are not adapting to it, then we won't be releasing the spec because tools are not migrated, right? And because tools are not migrated, we keep changing the spec. We keep refining it. And it's like, no, someone needs to be, we have the release coordinator, but it's too much for a single person, right? So we need someone, let's say, to not to dictate, but to help everyone coordinate and agree on specific rules, right? Like how much, or a process, agree on a process, but we cannot set this process for the whole initiative because, yeah, we're spec owners, no, not initiative owners, right? So yeah, these rules need to be agreed, I think, every time. I mean, hopefully not every time, because we can have a process that if everyone agrees, then we can use it. But yeah, like the process can be challenged every time.
I agree. Does anyone else have anything for problem?
Are we moving this into tasks or something later, or?
I'm gonna write everything down in the issue itself, and it would be nice if we can come up at the end with some concrete actions to take, because in some way or form we need to adapt the contribution guideline for the spec for major releases, so we have it concrete somewhere for how to deal with major versions, or at least a process we can use next time to improve next time again.
Yeah, yes, but not stop on the spec. So I think this needs to be elevated to the TSC so that everybody, so this is like a process for the whole initiative, not just for the spec.
Makes sense. But yes, a discussion to be had.
Yeah.
We might need to create another meeting after just to make it more concrete. But let's see. All right, moving on, unless someone has something else. Yeah, learning curve for contributions to the spec is way too steep. I agree. I have nothing. The problem is there's not. The only thing I see that we can do better is if we describe it in such a way that anyone can pick it up as a good first issue. The problem is that with the spec issues, it requires so much context and will to push it forward that it's, for example, not the best place for new contributors. But just the will to do it might be enough, because it's all it is discussions. It's discussions about point of view and how to improve it.
I think
but it is a lot of information, and it's easy to have a what's it called? Imposter syndrome, especially in a spec.
Yep. So I think the way we're doing this right now is in a passive way. We try to define the issues the best way possible sometimes. So we hope that someone picks it up and implement it and contribute and so on. I think we have to switch to an active way, right? So we cannot be just like hoping that because we define things well and so on, people will just pick things up and so on. We need to actively, I don't know, something that comes to my mind is like run a program, like a training program for those who want to become spec contributors. There will be co-owners of the spec. There might be co-owners of the spec that will be assigned as your mentor to help you walk that path that you were talking about, like so you don't have that problem that you were talking about, like this imposter syndrome. You don't have that because you're gonna have a mentor with you, helping you along the way until you feel comfortable, right? If so, we need to be more active at mentoring people on contributing to the spec, and also letting them know that it's fine if you don't have all the context. Nobody has it, right? None of us has it. So we rely on the other co-owners and even users sometimes that chime in, right, on other contributors that know, for instance, it's my case. I have no idea about SQS SNS, right? I have no idea about it, but I don't care. Like if I have to do a change about it, I will do it, right? And I will ask as many people as I will find that know about AWS SNS SQS to review it, right? That's why we do reviews, right? So it's okay to make a mistake or to make something that doesn't make sense, because if you get it approved, then it's not your mistake anymore, right? It's everyone's mistake, right? Because it got approved. So that's the theory, right? So that's me. That's the theory. That I also feel the imposter syndrome sometimes, of course, but I feel it less than newcomers, let's say. Okay, cool. I think the way to solve it is by us actively trying to help them overcome this barrier, right? And improving documentation, having training videos, training material, something like that, assigning a mentor to help you. And the cool side effect of all of this is not just that they will learn better the spec, is that we will end up with more maintainers as well, right? I mean, if everything works well, of course. So yeah, more people, more knowledge sharing, basically, as much as possible.
Yeah,
But
that's a good one.
that needs to be directed. It's a directed effort. It cannot be just have something and wait for people to do it, right? Because it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too complex to start.
Anyone else have something for learning curve? All right, moving on. So the next two I see is more or less the same. Shipped it and release process stall. I completely agree. It's a huge win that we actually released and then it didn't stall more than necessary. Or necessary is a hard word. Well, maybe not necessary, but that it didn't take a nosedive and we actually shipped it in the end. So completely agree. Huge win. Anyone have anything they want to discuss with this one?
We
We
Whee!
So this one, I think this is more or less the most important one to figure out how not to do it next time. At least for me, one of the huge issues was that there was no way to, when every change was done, it seemed like there was no ending to when we could release it. So figuring out how we can define explicitly either the what it takes to trigger the release, how to get there, would be a huge win in the terms of next release cycle for this, in my opinion. And I think both of them comes together, like shorter work, shorter release cycle makes it easier because there's less, it's less of a beast to move once it gets stopped. It's almost like a huge train. If it gets stopped, it's hard to get it started again.
Yeah, I think if the amount of work that we have to release, it's small, then figuring out how to not make the release process stall is not important, because it's not going to be a problem, because even if it gets a little bit delayed, it's going to get a little bit delayed. I don't know, like one more release cycle until the next release date, maybe not on this month, but the next month, the next one, not a problem. So I think this one got super like delayed because it was a big beast. So I think if we don't make any more big beasts, we will be fine. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about your sentence. You said one major version, one breaking change.
Yeah, I mean, more or less.
Yeah. No. But this will be just the opposite approach as we followed.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's important because I don't remember. I can't recall how many breaking changes we introduced in V3. Let's say
7, 8, 9.
3, 4. I don't know. No,
A lot.
Yeah, but maybe 4, something like this.
I think more than 4.
Yeah, that's the issue.
have a-
So what do you define as a breaking change? Do you remember? Like
We have it
because
defined.
yes, but you can group those into the feature. So I mean, for example,
Yeah.
what is the feature, right? So
Say one pull request that causes breaking changes, one or more, one major release.
yeah, I would say one feature that cause
What I'm saying is
breaking
that
change.
what I'm saying is if in a single pull request you make 2 breaking changes, let's say, that are related to each other, but 2 breaking changes,
Yeah.
then both go together in the same.
Yeah, that's the point.
So the thing is that we don't group pull requests
Yes.
like we did in a long live range,
Yeah.
right? We don't group them together so that we release at some point. No.
I
As soon as you merge the pull request, it triggers a new major release.
I think this is key, really.
Right, so that will be one of them. I think this one, combined with the fact that we don't have the version on the document, could actually make things a breeze. That's my opinion. My opinion.
I think that's a long discussion with
It's too late in the day for me to even wrap my head around.
They're saying that this
Franny is like direct to destroy the version on document, and he
of
wanted
course
to talk about it.
I didn't want to create the issue yet because it was too early. We just released version 3 and I wanted to give some time to people to celebrate, but I want to get rid of it. So I'm gonna propose it, of course. I'm gonna come up with examples, problems, and so there are problems, of course. There are other problems, of course, but no, there's no silver bullet here. But yeah, I think Yeah, this plus that I just said, plus combined with feature flags on the unstable features, let's say plus feature flags on the tools should be more than enough for us to just keep releasing without any fear of breaking things, and have this cycle of tooling and people using these features in an unstable state, let's say, for some time, so we can get some feedback, and at some point we remove the unstable.
I would say for this specific grouping of reflections, what would solve it is basically just you know exactly how you get from starting the release to ending the release. If you know the entire process there, that is laid out without any unknowns in the terms of like cutting the line between starting the release and ending it, as long as that entire line is uninterrupted and we have described that, then everything here doesn't that's solved, in my opinion. Sergey?
Yeah, is that including having several inputs and opinions about what should we do for completing the task, or having everything packed up for the release? It's a question. So does include this kind of not removing inputs, but unify those inputs, somehow put it in common way earlier in the release process to just come up with this list of things.
To be honest, I don't care that much about the release process as long as there is one. And it's clear exactly what is expected at what time and how you move forward. How don't you stall this process? I don't care if it says for example, give 3 months for whatever discussion to happen or something else, as long as it's clear. As long as there's no unknowns for the release coordinator and those interested, so they know exactly where they are on this release cycle and how they get to the end. That's my only concern. What is in between that and how it's specified, I don't care that much about, as long as it's clear and everyone knows it.
Fair enough.
I think we could keep discussing about this in somewhere else, because there are a lot of things to include.
Yeah, the thing is that's the ideal state. Let's say the process is clear and so on, but as we try out the process, as we do it for the first time, second time, third time, we'll find things that we never thought about.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Conditions that change, and then we will want to change the process in the middle, which is what ended up happening with V3, right? So you will always have that problem. Not always, but you always
But
have
the more major releases we do, the more, because we haven't done one before, we are also on uncharted territory in some sense. But now that we've done it once, I think that we are able to define a process we can try next time and improve upon. So I'm not looking for a silver bullet that always works first time. I don't think that will happen. But it's more that we have learned from this one moving forward. And that's basically all I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's fair enough for me. I completely understand.
And also, let me just point out something that I think if any change we make on the spec, I mean, every breaking change we make on the spec, like for instance, we are renaming a field, for instance, right? If we rename a field, then let's say this difference could be absorbed, let's say, by the parser, right? So the parser could be, and the parser is part of the release cycle, so it's really part of it. So, and the JSON schemas and so on, right? So this could be absorbed by the parser. So even if you end up using the new field name or the old field name, it will work for you. You should not be worried about it. Or if we add, let's say, well, if we add, it's not a breaking change. But for instance, if we want to add a new feature that we don't know yet if it's gonna go well because it's the first time we're adding it and we want to test it and so on. If we just prefix these things with unstable, something like that, we can release it immediately. If people use it, it's their problem. That it's clear that it's unstable. So the name of it is, imagine operations. It says instead of operations, it's called unstable _ operations. Okay, so you know it's unstable if you're using it. It's at your own risk, right? So then we can implement things on the tooling and so on, get a faster feedback loop. And once we know that everything is fine, it just goes. It just removes the unstable, right? It's just about this. So the only problem about this approach, and it's always coming to the same thing, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but the only problem about this approach is that people will have to keep changing the version number on the document, right? So if they want to use a new unstable feature, they have to upgrade to, let's say, 3.1. If they want to get rid of the unstable, renaming unstable something to without unstable means it's version 4 now. It's a breaking change, right? So, or maybe we can agree it's not, but 3.2. So they will have to upgrade to 3.2 or to 4 or to whatever. So you need to keep changing stuff, right? That's a pain. So that's why I was pointing about. I was mentioning multiple times during this meeting about the versioning, right? So, but if version is not there, then it would be just a matter of I just remove this unstable word or add it, and I know what to expect. So it just works or it doesn't work, and we can test it even in production. So people can test it in production with the unstable prefix, and once we know it's good, we're not getting any bad feedback or anything like that, we just remove it, and we're sure that it works. So
I think we have to separate a bit of discussion when it comes to improving the process, because it's almost like a parallel process. Like for you to suggest changing the process and for us to make improvements to a major release cycle in the terms of how the release cycle works, even for minor versions, are, in my opinion, like two separate discussions to have. If you change the release process entirely, how you want the async API document versioning to happen, etc., that is one thing, and it will change the release process. But that discussion in itself is a completely separate issue.
yes, we need to keep discussing that, and I agree. I'm saying that that's another way of like simplifying the release process.
Sure.
It simplifies it by a lot because you will never have fear of breaking anything anymore, right? You release it as unstable. You test it for 1 year if you want to, and once it's ready, you remove the unstable. So the process, the release process will be finishes once you remove the unstable prefix. But in the meantime, you don't block the spec. You can keep releasing stuff. You can keep trying it. You make it part of this release of this feedback loop with the tools, with people using it. So, and you don't have that problem that tools are not up to date. No, tools will be up to date. So That's why I'm bringing it up here, right? It's like it truly simplifies the release process. It basically removes the release process. It's just like a new pull request that has a feed exclamation mark will trigger a new major version, and that's it immediately, right?
I'm not even questioning why, because it makes sense. It's only that needs to happen for, like, for example, you need, like, all the spec owners have to agree to do that process before it changes how we do the release. So having this discussion about, like, going into details doesn't help us get to the goal of improving the release process in that term, in my opinion, not in this reflection. Because to me, it's two separate discussions.
I understand
I know that you mean that, like, I know why you bring it up, because it improves the entire release process in itself. But to me, it's two discussions. Until you explicitly have decided that's the new release process, then we can do it in this reflection. But in order to finish the reflection of this, it needs to happen in two separate, in my opinion, like, timelines. If that makes sense.
I understand why you're saying that. I will do it at once.
But I think I agree, Jonas. So I see both points. I'm gonna play the but what you're saying, Frank, I think will help a lot, but still should be like a defined process, or call it whatever you want, for avoiding all the mistakes we had in the past, even small ones that could, I don't know, delay or stall the release process for even just one day. It's enough for having something written down and setting up a process for avoiding this, like dependencies, people that says A, B, C, why you're saying A, B, C, if we agreed in C, D, tons of things. We can work on that. But I see your point, because my brain is
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I understand why Jonas is saying that. I'm saying that for the sake of, let's say being pragmatic here, I think if we address it at once, it's gonna be easier, let's say. Because we need to get rid of this problem as soon as possible. We need to define a process. And if we can have it simpler, because if we define a process now, and now, like, let's say the process, whatever process, right? And then we start discussing if we want to do this thing about unstable, not unstable, blah, 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 this, whatever, then we change the process again, right? What I will do is that let's have this discussion at once. Let's change the release process, and let's do whatever is needed to change it in a single discussion, let's say, at once, let's say. So yeah.
I would suggest that we do these reflections, like the next process or the next step in it is that we write down all of the major reflection groupings.
Yeah.
So we have all of the main problem from the last release, and then that's more or less the conclusion. How you and the spec owner, code owners, want to take that further and refine the process, that's up to you. I think that makes sense then. Before rounding out, I don't want to go through all of the last discussions, but if anyone wants to bring anything up that we missed or want to just bring up for clarity, feel free to do it now. I have one, but let's see if anyone else has. I can start as well. So the one thing I want to bring up is I really like the way that we did the recurring meetings with the live streams and everyone being able to participate, and the way that we then split out those meetings once the discussions become too technical and requiring way more discussion time, for example, request reply. I think that worked really well.
I agree.
That was the one I found. Does anyone else have any other reflection point they want to add or discuss, bring up?
We have a question from Animesh in the chat.
Animesh, I would reach out on Slack because it doesn't have that much to do with the reflection of it. Do you mind just writing it on the Slack channel?
Yes, I actually have something I would love to like. I mean, it's more of a question. And yeah, it's about like support for tools whenever there's a major version. So like the whole idea is to like have more maintainers in different repos, especially core tooling repos. And I was thinking, right? I mean, do you think it is like necessary, like for us to say, hey, if you're gonna be a maintainer, right? Whenever there is a major release coming, or whenever we have a new release, like a major release, you should prioritize like updating your tools, like your whatever tool it is you're maintaining.
I didn't get the question.
Yeah, me
Sorry.
neither. And
Yeah, so I
but
mean,
it's because the hour, is like
yeah, so
No, it's
uh,
because of you, Ace. So no.
no, it's not because
so like my question is, if we eventually like have more maintainers, let's say for instance, in studio, right? Let's say we have like more maintainers in studio that are not like part of the Postman team. These are like just other types of maintainers from different places. And whenever we have a new release, right? Let's say a major release, right? Do you think we should prioritize for the maintainers of different tools? Like, hey, whatever is a new release, a major release, it is a priority for you to like update this tool to support the new release.
Yeah, we discussed that. I remember. I think I remember. Yeah. The thing is that who are we? I partially agree with that, but who are we to shift the priorities of code owners of other repos?
Mm.
Right? That's the thing. So, I mean, who are we? We could be like, of course, we could be like running a voting through the TSE so that we enforce that the TSE enforces that all repos must prioritize the new major version and blah blah blah. But that feels a little bit like dictatorship, distributed dictatorship probably. But yeah, so instead of forcing people to shift priorities, which actually will be super easy, right? I think we should convince them that this is the way, right? What I will, the only thing, and I remember discussing this with Lucas, the only thing that I will love to vote at some point is that I will not tolerate that code owners of a repo under AsyncAPI organization decide explicitly not to implement one version, one spec version. Like not postpone it or something like no, like saying like no, I don't want to implement version 3. No, I'm not gonna approve any version 3 pull request. No, this will never happen, right? Because otherwise, I mean, if you want to do it in your own repo in your own account or something like that, cool. You have a tool or something like that, cool. But if you are under AsyncAPI organization, this must be a rule. New spec needs to be implemented, right? In my opinion. Otherwise, fork it and continue in your own organization or something like that if you don't agree, right?
I agree.
Or don't fork it, just ask for moving the project out of the AsyncAPI initiative, and people can discuss. TSC will have to discuss this probably. So that's the only thing. But then, of course, this process can be abused, and then people might not say, no, we're not implementing version 3. We are postponing it because it's not a priority, but they keep postponing it forever, right? So that's one way to trick it, right? But I guess, yeah, they can, let's say, not implement it, but if a contributor implements it, they have to approve it, right? If
That
there's
would be
no
a good, that would be a good method. Maybe they could also vote on which ones would get in the repo, which release that they will use. Like they could do a survey and they say, hey, which ones do you want to use for the repo? And the one that gets the most votes can be used. Just an idea.
I'm not sure I understand the suggestion.
I'm just saying, like, it could be like a vote, like pick certain releases and maintainers can be asked to vote for the one that they want to implement in that repo, and one that gets the highest votes can be picked.
Yeah, I
It's
see.
definitely possible. I think that you will create a scattered tooling landscape with it.
That's the problem. Yeah.
But it's definitely possible. And it also comes down to forcing that, like for example, forcing every version to be supported is something that is beyond the spec. It's something that is in the community. Like it's a whole change of mindset that we don't have now. We don't have anything rules that enforces tooling within the AsyncAPI organization to support every version.
Okay.
There's nothing that says that. So it's
Yeah.
like
Okay.
it's multiple chain.
Maybe we could start with that first, like enforcing some sort of regulations or standards when it comes with releasing. That could probably create a pathway to letting maintainers see how which release fits the version of the software that they're working with. It's just an idea. I'm
Yeah.
new.
That's actually not that far from what we have talked like
Yeah.
previously about the release coordination.
Mhm.
You know, so the missing rules lead us to do assumptions and to slow down the release process and coordination of a major release in that case, because the lack of kind of ownership or postponing priorities, different priorities on the release, and so on. So I think it's
Yeah, we need to propose something, that's for sure.
Exactly.
could-
The only thing that I will do is that I will not enforce it, right? I will enforce, for instance, what I said, like you cannot say I'm not gonna implement this version, right? I'm not gonna upgrade it to support the newest version. But you can decide when, like, that it's a priority for your repo or not. But if someone contributes this, you have to prove it, right? Because it's already done. You don't have to do it, but someone else did it. You only have to approve it, right? So or you have to review it and then approve it, of course. But if some tools support some version and some others don't support these versions, then you end up with a problem that you have a AsyncAPI document on version 3, for instance, and it's supported by some tools, but not others. So that creates a really bad user experience, right? when people try to use AsyncAPI, and tooling just doesn't work because one of the tools in the middle of the chain, of the tool chain, is not supporting it, right? So we want to avoid that, of course, right? So yeah. Again, we need to define it for sure. We need to make a proposal, define it, and so on. But I will not come up with a word for it unless it's just like, of course, like if your repo is under AsyncAPI organization, dude, that's why it's an AsyncAPI, right? Otherwise, keep it for yourself, right? So yeah.
I know I spoke before, but I wanted to introduce myself since I couldn't attend the community meeting there at like 3 in the morning, so I need my sleep. I'm Chrissy, and I first heard about this community through someone writing about Alejandra on LinkedIn, and I got curious because I love seeing women being in predominant in like leadership roles when it comes to docs. So decided to join, and well, here I am. Want to get better at technical writing, so yeah.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
By the
Welcome
way,
home.
community meetings are happening sometimes in
2 weeks.
Europe mornings and sometimes in Europe afternoons. So sometimes will be more about this time. Like it's like it happens every 2 weeks. So once it's in your 3 a.m. and another one will be in 30 minutes, more or less. So yeah, every 2 weeks. We keep rotating it.
Okay. I see why. See, I'm not, as you can tell by my accent, I'm not European. So
Yes, that's why I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying European because that's where I am right now. So it's my mornings or my afternoons, but you will always have one community meeting that will suit your time zone perfectly. That's what I mean.
oh, thank you.
Every 2
Thank
weeks.
you.
So yeah, no
All
problem.
right. Let's wrap this meeting up. I'm gonna write the what's that called?
Smart then.
I'm gonna use the AI because I'm gonna get a bunch of meeting notes and then adapt it. But yes, I'm gonna make a conclusion with the points that we discussed and the pain points we had and what we liked about it. So it's more concrete. And then basically throw up the ball to the spec code owners to improve the process based on the learnings that we did. I think. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Sorry for going way overboard with the time, but enjoy your morning, evening, whatever time it is.
Take care.
And see you around. All right. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.